Daniel was living in the 6th century, 539 BC is when the book of Daniel has been, well, 539 is when Babylon was destroyed. Daniel was there. So he's there in the 6th century, but he's writing about things that are very accurately, they're things that are happening at the time of the Greeks, which don't appear to the 3rd century, and the Romans who don't appear to the 2nd century. So how could Daniel, writing in the 6th century, have known things that are going to get to happen 300 to 400 years in advance? Unless, of course, this is divine knowledge. But, of course, historians don't like that. They don't like anything to do with God because they don't believe God exists to begin with. So they do not like the book of Daniel. And what they've been doing, they've been trying to look in the book of Daniel to find any error, any historical error, and they found it. They found it. Because who was the last king of the Babylonians? Who was the king when Babylonian was destroyed? By, not Nebuchadnezzar.
Belshazzar.
According to the Bible, it's Belshazzar, isn't it? The book of Daniel is very clear that Belshazzar was the king. Remember, he had the writing on the wall. He couldn't interpret it. He brought Daniel up to interpret it. He reads it, and then he turns to Daniel. And Daniel chapter 5, don't worry, it's not up there. He turns in Daniel chapter 5, and he says, because of what you have done, we're now on page, you're on page 12. He says, because of what you have done, you will be number 3 in my kingdom. And that's always been a curiosity. Why number 3? If Belshazzar's number 1, he'd be number 2. So already there's a mystery built into that verse, which we're going to have to try to solve. But the biggest problem is this. If you look at all these artifacts here, they're not written by Belshazzar. In fact, there's no reference to Belshazzar. We don't know who this Belshazzar is. We know that Nabonidis the last of all, is the final king. Nabonidis is the king that was destroyed in 539 by Darius under the authority of Cyrus the Great. All the artifacts saying. That's what Herodotus says. And Herodotus should know what he's talking about because he's writing in the 5th century, just 100 years later. Close to the event. Just 100 years later, I'll pretty much go with Herodotus before I'll go with someone like Daniel. Because why? Because I know Herodotus has got it right in every other area. He was there, he knew, he was reading these artifacts. We're reading these artifacts. They all write about Nabonidus. Where is Belshazzar? He's not here. Looks like he got us over a barrel. And so what the historians are saying is it looks like the book of Daniel was written in the 2nd century, redacted back to the 6th century, and that's why it was able to talk about the Romans and also the Greeks, because it's writing after the fact. Proving, therefore, that the book of Daniel is not historical, the writer is wrong, they've got the wrong king. How are we going to solve that?
Daniel was number 3. There was someone ahead.
How do you know? You've got to come to this little barrel. How many of you walk right past it, not even look at this? This is it. This unlocks everything. And this was just discovered by the British in that ziggurat that I showed you in Ur. Ziggurat, they would never barrel. This little drum was discovered in the ziggurat there in Ur. And it's a prayer by Nabonidus. No one disputes the fact that Nabonidus was the last king. We know Nabonidus was the last king. That's not a dispute. Herodotus is correct. Nabonidus is the last king. But he doesn't have all the truth. He doesn't have the whole story. To understand that, you need to come to this drum. Nabonidus, and look what it says. It's a prayer to who? To his son Belshazzar. That's the only reference we have to Belshazzar anywhere in the world. And it was just found by accident by the British. Proving that Belshazzar is historical. He is not fictitious. He did live at that time. He was the son of Nabonidus. That still doesn't solve the problem. We need to do that. We need to come to this tablet right here. That is written by Nabonidus, and it says for the last 10 years he went down to Timon in Arabia in semi-retirement, leaving the ruling of his kingdom to his son. Who his son is? We have to go to this drum to find out who his son is. His son is Belshazzar. The two of them were co-regents at that time. Now can you understand why Belshazzar says you're number 3 in my kingdom? Because he and his father were number 1 and 2. But that means nobody later would have known that, because not even Herodotus knew that. Why did Herodotus not know about Belshazzar? Something as significant as that. Just 100 years later, why did he not know that both Belshazzar and Nabonidus were co-regents, and that Belshazzar was caretaker king while his father was living down in Timon? Before he could do what? Before he could take the throne. He was on the throne, but why is it nothing's written about him? What is it that we've been looking at? All these artifacts, what do they talk about?
Victories.
Victories concerning conquests. What would have happened if Belshazzar went and conquered anything? Who do you think would have got credit for it? Nabonidus would have got credit for it. Therefore, Belshazzar would refuse to do any conquering until his father died. He was waiting for his father to die so that then he could go out and do his conquering, and then he would get the sole credit for all his conquests. Until then, he hadn't written anything because he had not done anything to write about. So nothing was written down about him. So Herodotus, 100 years later, knew nothing about him. But the book of Daniel does. The book of Daniel is the only piece of literature that actually knows that he was a king and also actually refers to him as king, proving that whoever wrote the book of Daniel had been living in the 6th century. Isn't that great? Showing that the book of Daniel had to be written in the 6th century, which means these are prophecies about the Greeks and the Romans. Now it was over a barrel. Good stuff, isn't it? That's why I love these artifacts. And that's why little things, something as small as that, being discovered just in the last century. Corroborating, giving us support, proving now that Daniel's got it correct. We can trust it. And if we can trust that, then we can also trust Daniel chapter 7, verse 14 that you're talking about, because that's the reference that all the Jews knew, that to be able to define who the Son of Man is. And when Jesus Christ 25 times in the New Testament refers to himself as the Son of Man, every time every Jew knew exactly what he was talking about because they had trusted the book of Daniel. They knew that in Daniel chapter 7:14 it says he will come in the clouds and he'll have dominion from everlasting to everlasting, have dominion over all tribes, nations, peoples, and tongues. That is as divine a claim as you can get. Only God can claim to be everlasting to everlasting. The Jews knew it, they trusted him, and look how they reacted. There in Mark chapter 14, when Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man, they took a stone to stone him. Why? Because the book of Daniel they trusted. And the Muslims are going to have to trust it whether they like it or not. Good stuff, isn't it?
Very good.
Good on you, Abdul. You've been converted.
Yes, sir.
All right.